What is up, winning team? Hello and welcome back to chapter 10 of the book of Job. I hope you guys are enjoying this series. It's all linked in the description and I recommend catching up because you guys know, if you don't know, my channel is just one long train of thought and I basically just pop in to share with you guys wherever we're at along the timeline. So the context is there in all the videos altogether, okay? And we're going to go into chapter 10. And in chapter 9, we were hearing Job kind of responding to his friends who, in my opinion, were being a bit shady because they were like, well, if this is all happening to you, there obviously has to be a reason. And he was kind of like in chapter 9, obviously, there has to be a reason. And no matter how blameless I am, and I was just saying at the end of the last video, evidently, and I loved that he acknowledged this in the last two bits that I really loved, where he, first of all, was like, no matter what he's done and how blameless he feels, he knows that he's still not perfect, basically. And he understands. This is what I mean when you can see somebody that, like, you know, like when somebody knows somebody else well enough that you understand them. Like, you see he believes in God's character and he truly believes and understands God, because he's like, this God has every right to actually do all of this to me, even if I'm the least sinning human on earth, because I'm still a sinner. I still sin, and the wages of sin are death. And no one has rectified that. That's what he's saying. He's acknowledging that. So he's like, hey, even still, I technically still could deserve all of this. You know what I mean? Now, I think that's an important point to mention, like, while we're talking about this, because I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding that, you know, and I've said this, a lot of Christians, where it's like, I'm going to try to do good enough. This is the religion. This is why I say the religion is of the devil. I'm going to do good enough. And if I do good enough, then now I've done, like, you add your works to your faith, which is, we've talked a lot about that, about how that's what the Catholic Church has done. That's what most religions do. The ones that include, you know, God of the Bible. They're like, oh yeah, faith. But also, because that's what we saw with with what happened in Martin Luther in the 1500s, and how the reason why he got upset is because he's like, wait, I've just read the scriptures. It says we're saved by salvation and like by faith alone. Why are you now saying for people to take off their sins and their time in purgatory, they need to pay half their year's wages, and they need to do this, and they need to follow the 7 sacraments that the Catholic Church, like, it's always these things that the people of the world wrote. And the reason I get so upset about it is because I feel like it's a strategic way to manipulate others, because it's a very human way of thinking that I can put in enough work to get out my salvation. Right? That's how religion works. And that's why even his friends are saying to him, hey, if this is happening, then you must be guilty. And in the actual case of what's actually happening, which is, again, like I said before, trust in the Lord your God with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, he'll make straight your path. This stuff is happening, not even because God, from what I'm understanding, because God is saying that is trying to punish him for whatever sins he is still doing or has done, but because he's like, I trust him so much. Despite all of that, I think he can handle this. And I know the relationship we have. I know his loyalty. Because that's a big thing that no one seems to talk about enough as Christians, is the concept of loyalty with God. Because that's what it says to me about God, is the fact that he's loyal to the bone, like the bones that we put on that cross and the bones that exist in the spirit, whatever that looks like, right? He's loyal. So he's like, even though we failed him from the beginning, he's never given up. He's never, ever given up. He gives us all the possible chances. I've even said to you guys that part of the reason I believe right now a lot of us are just in waiting. I started to realize, I think part of it is some of us, we actually are just waiting. And there's actually nothing more complicated about our situation and for some of us in the body of Christ, then we're just waiting, because God is giving people a chance. In the same way that, when Moses initially goes to Pharaoh and he's like, yeah, you need to let the God's people go. And he's like, nah, bruh, nah. They had to then wait and live through the 10 plagues. You know what I mean? They lived through all the 9 plagues. So can you imagine, they're going into slavery. The slavery becomes even worse, right? At first, they're even more mad at Moses now, because they're like, what the hell? We were comfortable in Egypt, just like we're seeing in the world now. And I feel like some of the believers, if I can be honest, and I feel very comfortable in saying this, I feel like a lot of believers, that's why God is going to allow things to get worse for a lot of us, because he's like, some of you need to actually address We need to let whatever's in you, because you need to get the lamb and you need to have the blood on the door frame because the spirit of death is coming along, and I am going to execute the 10th plague. And again, he gave Pharaoh 9 chances. We live in a world where it's like 3 chances, you're out. There's no context. Nobody cares. I get really upset thinking about the state of the world and like seeing so many people, whether it's kids, whether it's people I've known who actually are trying, but their degree of trying is not good enough. And the truth is, it's not. Our degree of trying amongst us as humans is never good enough even for each other. It really isn't. And that's why we're in a state of chaos. So, God is so gracious. He is giving all these extra chances for people to actually wake up. And also for those of us, who are in these predicaments, this is where your relationship becomes real. Like, this is where your relationship becomes real. Because if there's anything I can say, as much as I hate everything that's been happening over whatever, and I'm hating the state of everything, and I'm hating my own life, which is hence why I wanted us to read this together. Can I just say, I've never believed in my faith stronger than I have right now. Because I'm like, ain't no way I'm going through all of this with God and I'm still locked in with him. Ain't no way. And like I said, we historically have been adulterous. We're cheaters. We're always running off with, this is why God asked Hosea to marry the prostitute. And then Christians will go, oh, the prostitute, right? But hey, are you not the same prostitute? Are we not all prostitutes? We run off to the other gods, the spirit of money, the spirit of this, spirit of that, whenever it suits us. We build a golden calf. We want to run back to Egypt. We want to stay in the comfortability of the world. We're comfortable living amongst the world. How does that make any sense? That's like being married to somebody, but then living in another person's house and being there all the time. And then being like, oh, no, babe, oh, my babe, I love you, you're my everything. But meanwhile, you're always over there. It's like at a certain point, flicking back to my favorite scripture, 1 John 3:18, little children, let us love not just in word, but in deed and in truth. Yeah, so anyways, let's read, guys. We don't have all the time in the world. So chapter 10, verse 1. I loathe my very life, therefore I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. See, he's like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and I'm going to say what I'm going to say, because what's the point in pretending? God knows anyway. The only people I'm lying to is myself and the rest of everybody by pretending. And the only thing that's going to have to do is shatter your relationship with God, because God can see. This is why I feel like God did stop responding to Saul when we were reading 1st and 2nd Samuel. Because Saul keeps going to have a conversation with God and then clearly going and violating what God said. So at a certain point, God's like, well, he didn't reply. He didn't reply. And you know what's funny? It's almost as if it's because he knew the internals of Saul, because what does Saul do next? Oh, God isn't doing exactly what I want to do the way I want to do it, even though I'm the one who repeatedly is disappointing him. He does exactly what I said. He goes off cheating, goes to the necromancers to do witchcraft. Yeah, I'm seeing it, guys. It's like as clear as day. I feel like my eyes are open, and I just feel like everybody's walking around with their eyes closed. I loathe my very life, therefore I will give free rein to my complaint and speak out in the bitterness of my soul. I say to God, do not declare me guilty, but tell me what charges you have against me. Does it please you to oppress me, to spurn the work of your hands, while you smile on the plans of the wicked? Do you have eyes of flesh? Do you see as a mortal sees? Are your days like those of a mortal, or your years like those of a strong man, that you might search out my fault and probe after my sin? Though you know that I am not guilty, and that no one can rescue me from your hand. Whew, that's deep. And I feel like what's deep about that is he's basically comparing the concept of nitpicking every single little thing he's done wrong with what humans do. This is like, are you a mortal that you're gonna go and nitpick? And this is another thing that Christians love to do, and we do in the world. Like I said, nothing's ever good enough. Yeah, you go and nitpick, and he's like, are you like the people here nitpicking? And I get it, where he's like, his brain is trying to work through this, because like, this doesn't make any sense. This isn't the God I know. So again, what could sound like him, being confused about his faith or whatever, is actually him being like, God, I know you, this doesn't add up. And that is real faith. Not, oh, everything's good and everything's fine as long as I go to church and I've got my little group and my little Bible study and I listen to worship music and my children, like, and all of that. No, it's like trusting in someone. This is why I love some of these game shows that people do, where they'll have like people, and they could be like best friends, they could be like a couple, they could be family, and then they'll ask each other questions. They'll split them and see what each other would do when the other one's not there, and that's when the relationship is really tested, because you're like, And that's also where God is dangerous, and why I think a lot of people struggle to have a relationship with him, because it's like, if he sees everything, you could be fooling everybody in the world, but God still knows. And I love that, because it actually makes the relationship easier, because it's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to have to talk about it then, aren't we? Because you can see anyways. There's no hiding. And I really do believe so much of why the world is the way it is now is because we're so used to being able to just hide things. And it's not helpful. Like, I'll just tell you, it's not helpful to you. It's not helpful to anyone. And this is where I'm like, sometimes you just got to go through the uncomfortable conversation, the uncomfortable season, the uncomfortable changes, make uncomfortable decisions for the sake of the greater good, even if it's just for yourself. Your hands shaped me and made me. Will you now turn and destroy me? This is verse 8. Remember that you molded me like clay. Will you now turn me to dust again? Did you not pour me out like milk and curdle me like cheese? Clothe me with skin and flesh and knit me together with bones and sinews. You gave me life and showed me kindness, and in your providence watched over my spirit. But this is what you concealed in your heart, and I know that this was in your mind. If I sinned, you would be watching me and would not let my offense go unpunished. If I am guilty, woe to me. See this? He just said exactly what I said. You would be watching. He's aware that God is watching. And I find this fascinating because there's a passage in the scripture, and it reminds me of the church leaders of today, a lot of them, right? Especially the popular ones, which again, if you're so popular, maybe you should question that. I talked about them in my previous videos, which I will be uploading. I'll try my best, although I feel like I went a bit too hard, but my earlier videos from today. In Ezekiel 8 in the Bible, it's a really interesting passage because God basically takes Ezekiel into this, and he gets Ezekiel to do some really strange things as well, by the way. And he takes Ezekiel somewhere and he tells Ezekiel to keep like looking behind the wall and seeing. And then basically, if it's either the temple or it's where the people of God were, which I think it's actually both, like leaders. And but you have to go and double check, guys, for yourself. But it's Ezekiel 8. And basically, they've got all these, like, it says it shows the creeping things. So it's got all like as soon as I heard creeping things, I'm envisioning insects and stuff, which is making me think, oh, they're worshipping like the gods similar to like the gods that were being worshipped in, say, Egypt, like what we see in the hieroglyphs today, you know. And they were doing abominations. And he literally says, and this is the chilling part of it, he's like, because they think I can't see them. And so it gets to that point where it's like, that is when you know you don't have a relationship with God, because if you knew God, you would know from experience, he sees everything. You can hide from everyone. And this is why I think people struggle with a relationship with God. You can hide from everyone. Even in our normal lives, you know, when I hear people telling me their stories, I get told a lot of people's secrets. From just the Bible studies of it all. So I know a lot of people who shared a lot of their deeper secrets, from the dating scene of it all, and then me being shared a lot of secrets. I realize that a lot of people are really hiding what's really going on in their lives. And it makes me sad, but I also understand because I know the climate of the world we're living in. And so I get why it's difficult, because a lot of people, I think, expect God to react how humans do. This is deep. This is deep. Then it says, if I am guilty, woe to me. Even if I am innocent, I cannot lift my head, for I am full of shame and drowned in my affliction. If I hold my head high, you stalk me like a lion and again display your awesome power against me. You bring new witnesses against me and increase your anger towards me. Your forces come against me, wave upon wave. Why then did you bring me out of the womb? I wish I had died before any eyes saw me. Oh, tell me about it. And oh my gosh, I'm thinking it's going to be less than a month to my birthday, and the Sidemen charity match is going to be over, so that's going to be a really hard day. I might just read the rest of the whole chapter for my birthday, but there's a whole book, because I can't tell you how much I think about this. And then the fact that people are like, how have you heard it? And all excited about literally the worst event in history. Oh, gosh. If only I had never come into being, or had been carried straight from the womb to the grave, right? Am I right? Oh, I've thought about that. Are not my few days almost over? Turn away from me so that I can have a moment's joy before I go to the place of no return, to the land of gloom and utter darkness, to the land of deepest night, of utter darkness and disorder. Jeez. Darkness and disorder. I'm enjoying this new Bible. Because how do we end up saying the same things? It's almost as if we're talking to the same guy. it's almost as if we're feeling the same way because we're talking to the same guy. Now, I would not put myself in the wheelhouse of Job. I very much probably more dibble dabble in what I shouldn't be dibbling and dabbling in. But I relate. To the land of the deepest night, of utter darkness and disorder, where even the light is in darkness. So this is deep. This is really deep. Now, he says, turn away from me so that I can have a moment's joy. He's like, can I just for, if this is it, like, I so understand it. He's like, if this is it, and I'm actually now like getting kicked out, yeah, can I have just a breather, like one last hurrah before I end up in hell? Because evidently I'm guilty and you're sending me there. And it's quite deep. And honestly, it's an admirable, what the hell? I can't do English. Admirable? I don't know, thing to say, because he's basically, he's not angry at God because he's taking accountability again. Like, there is a possibility. This is something I even say to you guys. I don't understand how people in situations don't, like, it's in relationships these days, don't realize that maybe your behavior is part of why somebody else's behavior is that way. And you're getting upset about that other person's behavior because you and your selfish self haven't thought about how what you're doing and what you do affects other people or has affected that person. That's why I said the entitlement is stupid, because you don't know what you've done. A lot of times, and this is just part of relationships in life, yeah, we do things, you can hurt somebody unintentionally. And I've told you guys that's happened to me a number of times, where like I realize somebody tells me like, oh, this, you did this and this and this and I didn't like it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it came across that way, you know. And that's where I even have given up on relationships. This is what I'm saying, because so many times I've been in that position. This is why I feel like I relate to God, where you're like, whoa, like where is all this coming from? Like, we're not even giving people a chance, we can't even whatever, because people don't then think, you know. So he's like, this is why all of this stuff is honestly very emotional and kind of traumatizing in a way to think about and to read, because I just know how real this is. Because let's not forget, he's here trying to hold on to faith. His own wife is like losing in faith. His own friends are like, well, you must be guilty. And then it's like, so what did all those words mean yesterday? Like, that's my point. What was the point of being the wife and being there and being a team if as soon as this happens, you're already now slipping away? What was the point of calling yourselves his friends? Why were you friends with somebody who you're so quick to believe this stuff can happen to? Like, this is why I'm like, these are the experiences I have. Because sometimes, and even I've had people say certain things, like even with God, it's like, how can you have all this built up resentment, but then you called yourself a Christian all along and you were just hiding that away? So that's where I respect him here so much, where he's like, hey, God, I trust in your character. He's taking accountability. I must have done something wrong. And if you could just allow me a little blip of enjoyment before all is said and done. He's not even mad about it. He's just going through it. And that's the thing. And I feel like it's a testament to, like I said, the foundation of faith being you trusting in God's character. And that's where you can have that relationship, because God knows he can trust you. This is probably why Job didn't know this was coming. This is probably why God was like, hey, he's even the one who brought Job up to Satan. Have you considered this guy, my servant Job? Because he knows that the relationship they've built, what's visible in the natural and visible in the spiritual, this is real. And that Job trusts in God's character. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And so, you know, little does Job know that things are going to turn for the best, and that the reason why this is happening. And this is also why I say, guys, just keep holding on to faith, because I really feel like it's going to be so satisfying for so many of us when we've been through all of this. We didn't do a lot of things we could have done, just like when David, you know, when he didn't kill Saul and he had the chance, he always called him a servant of the Lord. How can he touch a servant of the Lord? You see here with Job, he's not questioning God's character. I truly believe it's going to be so satisfying for all of us when we see others fall away, because, you know, the Bible talks about people falling away, and we get to the other side and we're like, wow. And to be able, like, to me, what I think would be one of my proudest moments in life, the proudest moment I could have, would be holding on to my faith to the end, because then I can stand before God and not be catching up at the end of the season, or having to apologize that I gave up faith, or dying in the wilderness. But I can say, hey, God, you know, and I know whatever happened. If whatever I did, whatever I felt like, whatever bad decisions I made, intentionally or unintentionally, you know, I never gave up on my faith, and you know, I never questioned your character. And I feel like that feeling is going to be like euphoria on the other side. Meanwhile, other people are going to be feeling bad and guilty, like, oh no, we should have known, we should have this, we should have that, all getting caught up in feelings and selfishness and cowardice and trying to fake a facade or be involved in religion. Anyways, you guys, that's that for this. It's all going to be linked in the description box, as I said. So go and check that out for the other videos leading up to here. We will be continuing with this as and when. I'm trying to do every day, but sometimes if it's just not the moment, I just don't feel the moment is right, I don't want to do it, because I feel like you've got to move when the spirit is moving. And honestly, I think it worked out exactly as it was supposed to. Anyways, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this, because if life's a game, it's paid to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in the next one.